Back again with another one. Now this video is upon request. Somebody thought I ought to speak on Messy Marv and him recently burying a hatchet or calling the truth with Mistah FAB. So here it is. Now, and usually, I do address local politics to an extent, but I do need to speak more on the local rap hip-hop scene, especially when it comes to the older school rappers, especially from my era and younger, and give them their props due or highlight the proper story or the proper way to look at them, in my opinion. So let me break it down. Well, for one, in a nutshell, that's what's up. I'm not, in that respect, I don't got a horse in the race. Although me and Fab are pretty much closely from the same side of town, being that I'm from Apgard, which is another video in itself. But yeah, and we Longfellow alumni, but other than that, I got no horse in the race, and of course he town business as well, But we all know mess put on from the Bay, Frisco, Oakland, for the Bay period, So let me break it down. But that's in a nutshell, right on for both of them. And being that the Bay need to come together in a lot of ways because it's bigger than the Bay when it comes to world affairs. So in that respect, we need to stick together, especially being where it ain't as serious, But again, I ain't there, I don't know they funk, so whatever. But let me just talk a little bit about Mess, because Mess is definitely the most unsung hero rap artist when it comes to the Bay Area. Not even just Frisco, just the whole Bay period. And that's one of the cool things about Mess. So let me just go back a little bit, because I'm not going to say Mess is not my era, the era under me. He pretty much is my era. But a lot of times when Mess was getting popping, I was in and out of jail. Now, of course, I heard of him, but at this point, I never really heard his music like that. I heard certain people talk about him or whatever, and everything I heard up to that point was good. Even people that met him in person was like, yeah, he hella cool or whatever, And he had family out in the town in Oakland, so it was good. So now, I think the only issue as far as Mess is concerned, well, first let me just talk about the him and Fab issue. Now, as I remember, it was primarily due to the whole Mac Dre legacy, so to speak, if I'm not mistaken. Because I guess at that time, Mess was gaining big popularity. His name was ringing. And I believe him and Shorty got into it too as well, because from Mess' perspective, he was like, well, Short, you ain't put on nobody from the Bay. You ain't helped. So now that I'm on, y'all want to accuse me of not helping? Something to that extent, and y'all let me know in the comments. And I'm not exactly sure where him and Fab fell out. I believe it has something to do with the whole yellow bus. I believe so, if I'm not mistaken. I think it just pretty much has something to do with that. And a lot of people, I guess, from Fab and them Ian probably felt Mess was on some other shit due to, because I guess this is around the time he started, and this is where the whole controversy come in. Mess started banging. He started blooding. Now, as you know, and if you don't know, I made a video about that. My first video, one of them actually. I suggest you check it out. ain't no Crippin' in blood in Oakland, and ain't no Crippin' in blood in the Bay Area, with a small exception from some brothers in San Jose. Now, this is not to say people don't got family and all that, but it ain't no Crippin' in blood, period. So when Mess did that, a lot of people was kind of like scratching their head, because I was too. And then I'm going to break it down how I found out. But anyway, a lot of people was scratching their head because we don't gang bang. And let me go back, because I didn't even know that at that point. Again, I wasn't really listening to Messy Marv like that. I heard of him, of course. It actually was one of my cousins. He from out here, but he was in the Midwest for a few years. And when he came back, and we was talking and shit, then I guess we talking about rap or something, and Mess name came up, and I'm like, yeah, Mess, and he was like, no, Mess, man, you heard, bro? And I'm like, nah, what you talking about? And he the one that showed me the video about some cats from Mess Hood, from Fillmore, that was getting on him about that. And I never knew that up to that point. Mess was good. And that's when Mess started having problems. And this is aside from his personal issues, whether dealing with addiction or whatever. I ain't even talking about that. But when it comes to the whole broad politic look, I guess. But yeah, so my thing is now, not even in hindsight, because I felt like this at the time, the only reason he did that was because the industry was leaning towards blood. You had the Wayne and all them, they was red, and there was a lot of red affiliates getting popping. We already had Death Row, but they was on a downward, of course, but still, it was cool to be blood as far as in the industry. And I think that had a lot to do with his decision. Now, I could be mistaken now, because, by Mess, him blowing up, him going on tours and all that, and perhaps he was networking. I don't know. But to this day, that is a head scratcher to me. You know what I'm saying? But whatever. And after that, of course, Mess got into some old personal problems. He got into it in Reno with some promoters and all that. And then just miscellaneous, local beefs, I should call it, or whatever, And Mess fell off. But that ain't too much what this story is about. We already know. We already hope Mess do good. I'm just pretty much just saying how Mess, because when it comes to this rap, he one of the unsung heroes of the Bay. Because musically, majority of the Bay love him. You know what I'm saying? I can see him coming out on the stage right now, and everybody going through thick and thin, through all he been through. You know what I'm saying? Y'all can't take that from me. So I give Mess his props to that extent. And again, I'm not, of course, there's certain songs that I like of Mess. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love the classic, that him and that orange juice and the blunt for breakfast. And and there's a few others, but I'm not like a big Mess fan. I'm not a Mess hater, but I just didn't really listen to it, But again, back in the day, I just want to go back, because when he was on that Yuckmouth United Ghettos, and they was on tour, when he had his long hair, and when he was interviewing, and he was giving a shout out to Yuck, and it was like East Oakland or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I was feeling that, because I'm like, he putting on for the Bay. You know what I'm saying? He from Frisco to Mo. It's all good. So up until that point, Mess was solid. And I ain't gonna say solid the word. Like I said, the only discrepancy, you know what I mean, that I would have with him is that whole banging thing. You know what I'm saying? All this personal shit, man, that's personal. Ain't got nothing to do with me. But that's just pretty much how I feel now. Back to him and Fab reconciling. I mean, again, like I said, that's all good. Again, I don't want to say these cats ain't in necessarily my era, because that really made me feel old like that, but they are. For the most part, they are. But then they ain't. But they are. That ain't the point. It's all town business, man. And that's just how I feel about that, y'all, man. So y'all let me know what y'all think, man.